So let's dive in and see how can we set up a new firewall to our architecture. So I can see here that I have added a new service to our Docker Compose, and we are using a Docker image from the OWASP. And for Nginx, you could have that for Apache as well. And we have set here some small list of environment variables. For example, the blocking paranoia 1. So basically, this is the level of strictness that you want to apply to the request that's coming. The higher the number, more strict it will be. But that comes with a downside as well, because if you put that too high, you start to increase the false positive requests. So it'll be dropping requests that it's valid, but might identify it as a malicious request and drop valid requests. So be careful, you need to kind of play with it and see how your system behaves on this, depending of the level of paranoia that you want to set. And the report level is just a type of information that will be logging, and you have here the backend. Basically, you put the URL that you want to forward after the evaluation. In our case here is to our authentication gateway, and the mod secure rule, it is where you define if you want to actually block the request or if you want to just detect and log the information in your logs. So let's just start it up and see how it behaves. So we have it started. We have loaded all the configurations, and now I'm gonna start to fire some requests, malicious requests, and see how this system behaves. You can see here that the request went through. This is coming from our authentication gateway, so it's not authorized because we don't have our header. However, if you go to the logs, you can see that our firewall added a lot of information about this request, and one of the reason that was contain this request, all this information, is because it was notified as a malicious request. Therefore, it logs a lot of things. So the request parameters, the response body, and also here you can see that it has a message saying that cross-site script attack was detected, and it adds here which rule was actually matched with this request, which you can see here: application attack, cross-site script, and more. You can see here rule ID. This rule ID is important because you might want to exclude this rule from your checks, and you can just use this ID on exclusive rule configuration and here, and you could just put in your ID of they want to exclude here. You can see that you have two types of exclusion rules. You can exclude before even process the rule, or you can do after. So you could be using you can be excluded only if given criteria. For example, you can use the response body to check if there is something there that you might want to exclude, depending on what is contained in the response body. That's why you have it logged here, the response, because you could just use something like if it contains for one authorized request, you could just exclude it and not block, but return the real response. And let's now then enable this and see if we start to drop malicious request. Okay, start it again. And now we're gonna fire the same request that we had before, and you can see that this was 401, and now we are gonna start to receive 403 because this is a cross-site script, and we want to drop all malicious requests. Let's try another one. So let's use the SQL injection one. You can see that it was dropped as well, and it was not reach our downstream. Now you can actually check against Gunner bot as well. So it's very common to see hackers using and map to Gunner network or a system, and you can just drop requests that comes from those type of tools as well. You can see one more. So there is the remote code type of request that the hackers trying to actually execute a code in through the URL, and you can see that it would drop that as well. And what else you can? There is this type of file inclusion, local file inclusion, that used to be very common on PHP and WordPress, and this would be protected as well. XML external entity used to be common as well, and where you would be including, local files to XML entity, but it will be excluded as well. And you can even try against this DDoS type of requests. This didn't catch, so this was a valid one, 43. And you can see that it was also forbidden. And this is a very good tool because you will not depend of your application developers to avoid those issues. You could have something on a higher level and protect the whole system and not having to leverage from individuals on your system. So this is very important to have on a toolbox of a security architecture. And this have a lot of options, or let's say can be very extensive. So you can do a lot of customization. You have a lot of options here that you could pass, for example, proxy asserts. You could have timeouts. You could have coarse configurations and the NES server, and a lot of things that you could be setting up to make your system more secure. I hope this makes sense. I really encourage you to check out those two projects and play with the mod security and start to add web app firewalls for free in your systems. Thank you very much. See you in the next lecture.